All right, welcome to our third episode of our identity series. And today we're talking about the third identity statement. And before I give you this third identity statement, which I believe is a huge game changer, we'll recap. So the first identity statement was, I am someone who shows up. Our brain can always create evidence of that. Even if you have the worst flu ever, you can still show up to the gym or roll out of bed and do one sit up or one push up to reinforce that identity as I am someone who shows up. The second episode we talked about I am a healthy person. We can always create evidence of saying I am a healthy person by tracking everything that we write down, good, bad, or ugly. We can always reaffirm that identity. So what we're talking about is when we have an identity statement, we have success behaviors that reaffirm and create evidence of that identity statement. So we're talking about creating those success behaviors. So here is what I would hear a lot, particularly being in the athletic area or the physique competition area, is a lot of people would say they would identify to a certain activity or a sport that they couldn't constantly create evidence towards. Okay, by definition, sports have a preseason, an in-season, and an off-season. So by definition, most sports, you're going to take time off. Well, we can't really take time off. That's not how our brain deals with evidence. Our brain needs that evidence daily. So for example, instead of saying I am a wrestler or I am a CrossFitter or I am a bodybuilder, well, what we saw happens a lot is that CrossFitter would go and they would reach the pinnacle, they would hit their competition, take some time off, and then get depressed because they were no longer producing evidence towards their identity. We saw this huge in the bodybuilding community. We continue to see it to this day. Is they'll get in great shape, they'll do this show, and then just things go to heck in a handbasket because they're no longer producing behavioral evidence that supports that they are a bodybuilder. Or God forbid, in sports, if someone gets injured, they get into a really, really depressed state. So instead of identifying as an athlete, or say as a bodybuilder, or a CrossFit, or a wrestler, or whatever, a golfer, or whatever, you can say, I am a growth-driven person. Or what I also like is, I am someone who enjoys a physical challenge. I like growth-driven person because even if the worst of the worst, even if you became a paraplegic, you can still give your brain evidence that you are a growth-driven person. You can grow in your spirituality. You can grow by reading more books. You can grow in your intellect. You can grow in your marriage. You can grow, doing forearm curls, whatever. So don't pigeon yourself into just like, hey, I am a bodybuilder, because it may come to a point where you're not able to compete or whatnot, and you don't want to teach your brain to lose those identity, to lose that those success behaviors. So instead of pigeonholing yourself there, say, I am a growth-driven person, or I am someone who enjoys a physical challenge, and your brain will constantly produce more evidence of that. And like we talked about in the prior two episodes, it will filter non-growth driven behaviors out. And it won't be like a sacrifice. When that friend calls who's, not a growth driven person, and you've created so much evidence in your brain of being a growth driven person, you're just going to be busy that day. It will happen. It's kind of like the laws of the universe, You'll just happen to be busy when non-growth driven people are trying to bring you down, not because you're ignoring them or being rude or saying that you're better than anyone. It's not like that. It's because your reticular activating system is going to find growth-driven behaviors to support that identity. That is the beauty of this entire series, is when we have the right identities and we've created enough evidence, it becomes easier each day. And that's when you hit momentum. When identity equals success behaviors equals time. So identity plus success behavior that supports that identity plus time, that's what equals momentum. That's how people go from an overnight success, and it's never an overnight success. It's like a 20-year overnight success. But that's how we see it. We're like, oh my gosh, what happened? Well, that person had an identity statement, created evidence by success behaviors, and then consistently acted on those success behaviors. So hopefully this was really beneficial for you. Appreciate you tuning in. Please share this with someone who it can also benefit, and start forging that identity, start creating that evidence, and watch the growth happen. You are a growth-driven person. You've got greatness. You've got staying power in you. Can't wait to see and watch your growth occur.